Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the May 21st, 2026 regular meeting of the Finance and Risk Management Committee, FRMC. I am Vitas Yamani, Chair of the FRMC, representing the City of National City. We have Councilmember Michael Nsunza of the City of Chula Vista, and we're waiting for a few more minutes for Councilmember Genevieve Suzuki. She's on her way. We welcome members of the public, community power staff, and committee members joining us in person at the City of Chula Vista Council chambers. Thank you, Council Member, for the use of your chambers. I now call the meeting to order. Sandra, please, and please announce if we have a quorum now. Thank you. Present.
Director Nsunza.
I'm here.
Vice Chair Suzuki. Chair Yamani.
Here.
We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Let us turn and face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Nsunza, would you be so kind to lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Please stand if you can and put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the
republic for which it stands, one nation,
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Next, we acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the land of the original inhabitants of the Greater San Diego region. A land acknowledgement is a critical step toward working with Native communities to create meaningful partnerships and inclusion in the stewardship and protection of their cultural resources and homelands. Let's take a moment to honor these ancestral grounds that were the traditional lands of the Kumeyaay. Thank you very much. We have special presentations and introductions. I would defer to our CEO for this. Madam CEO, please do the honors.
Yes, we would. Is this on?
Yes. No, the red one.
Yes, so we would like to welcome our new Chief Financial Officer, Janice Burlingame. Janice, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes. Good afternoon, members of the FRMC board and Chairman Lonnie. I am your new Chief Financial Officer, Janice Burlingame, and I'm thrilled to be here. Over 2 decades, I've led finance through some of the most exciting and defining times in clean energy, including solar EV, battery storage, and sources that wasn't even here a generation ago. Community powers work matters. It matters to the community, to the region, to the environment, and the people we serve. I'm here to make sure that our numbers tell a story, protect our assets, our finances, and continue to bring forth, strengthen our transparency and accountability. It's an honor to be here, and I look forward to working with and earning your trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Madam Clerk, please note that Councilmember or Vice Chair Suzuki just joined us.
I apologize for being late.
I apologize for South Bay traffic for
It started in Del Mar, so I came from one end of the county to the other. So
we don't leave the South Bay. We like staying right here.
thank you.
Madam Secretary, are there any items to be added, withdrawn, or reordered on the agenda?
There are none, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We move on to our non-agenda public comment. We will now take up non-agenda public comments and any written public comments submitted before the FRMC meeting were emailed to committee members prior to the meeting and will be posted on the website. Sandra, do we have any non-agenda public comments?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. We have a member of the public.
Thank you.
Please approach the podium. We have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
San Diego Community Power. I believe this is Finance and Risk Management Committee. I appreciate the time to have my public comment. Appreciate staff for being here, you know. Want to recognize everybody in the building because I know it's a community effort which makes all this possible. Going through today's agenda, I don't want to get too much onto what I want to speak about for the item. I want to speak in general. And so there are going to be times where social media is going to drive a lot of negative publicity, possibly. I mean, I guess any publicity is good publicity, but for associations, it's going to be indirect associations that are going to be made. So the first item has a group on it, San Diego 350 they go by. And that group, if you look at their Instagram account, going back into when Biden was office, they had a more of like an ask, right? Like declare a climate emergency. And then when you look at the tone, which let me remind you, we're giving them money, okay? But when you look at their tone, it's now fascism and the president's a dictator and no king's protest advertisements. So are you guys actually sticking within the scope of what the original donations were for or contract agreement? We'll get into that with the item, but this is in general to any group that we associate ourselves with, right? We hope that the funds are going to be used for the cause that it was and not political affiliations to fund your buddies, you know? And so you have to like really separate yourself from that because I could be held just as liable to something like that as well. The difference is I'm not the one giving out $78,000 to them, right? So, you know, if our return on investment is to cause division and fuel the flame, I think we need to reconsider our position with some of the partnerships because they're promoting division. And I don't think San Diego Community Power wants to be known for promoting division, right? We're all for protesting, but if you're going to financially support this organization, I think the public has the right to know that it's a very divisive message they're putting out, not a unified message. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robert. Thank you, sir. We will now move to our consent calendar. Item 1, approve March 19, 2026 meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
Madam, okay, I have a motion and a second. Are there any public comments on this item, Madam Secretary?
There are none, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have a motion by Director Nzunza and second by Vice Chair Suzuki. Please, if there are no other comments, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Director Insunza,
Yes.
Director, excuse me, Vice Chair Suzuki,
Suzuki, oh, I was gonna say Suzuki, aye.
Chair Yamani,
Aye.
motion carries, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We will now move on to our regular agenda items. Item 2, Treasurer's Report for 8-month period ending February 28, 2026. Mr. Jeff Spengler, Associate Director of Strategic Finance and Procurement, and Interim Treasurer will present this item.
Thank you, Chair Yamani, members of the committee. Nice to see you all. Jeff Spangler, Associate Director of Strategic Finance, Procurement, and Interim Treasurer. I'm here to present the Treasury Report for the 8-month period ending February 28, 2026. Just a reminder to the committee and the public that these are based on unaudited financial statements that are prepared monthly for transparency purposes. I'm pleased to report that through February, we are tracking favorably against the amended budget on both revenues and expenses. Revenues are tracking just above our budget at 6.9 million over budget for revenues and about 5% below budget for energy expenses, largely as a result of lower energy costs throughout the year, which will come up in our next presentation. This results in a year-to-date net position of approximately 199 million, which is roughly 47 million ahead of our budgeted 152 million through this time of year. This chart tracks our monthly operating income against our budgeted net position over the fiscal year. Actual operating income is in line with our budgeted net position in most months. The trend shows that our solid and consistent financial performance compared to budget is it has been solid through the first 8 months of the year. Days cash on hand, as you know, is our key liquidity metric, with a target of 225 days cash on hand, a minimum of 180 days cash on hand, and a maximum of 270 days. Days cash on hand has climbed steadily from 134 days in early 26 to approximately 227, which is right at our target of 225. Now that we've reached our target days cash on hand level, this allows us to strategically consider the use of reserves for rate stabilization purposes going forward. We're excited about that. This slide presents the breakout of our reserves and how they're being held. Total reserves are approximately 635 million, of which 447 million is held in unrestricted cash, 85 million in current investments, and 104 in non-current investments. In addition, we have a $223 million revolving line of credit available for emergency purposes. This slide shows our year-to-date investment income for fiscal 2026 through February. February income of just over 2.8 billion brings us to a total of 12.9 million for the year. Investment returns have benefited from higher interest rates throughout the year. It is important to note that interest income is an important offset to our operating expenses and contributes to our overall net position. Finally, this slide shows our participation across all our jurisdictions. Happy to report that our participation rate has remained stable and steady at 95.5% across all jurisdictions. With that, that concludes the Treasurer's report for February 28, 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Spangler. Members, do you have any comment, direction? This is a report. It's an informational item only. Ms. Sandra, do we have any public comment on this item?
Yes, we do. Robert, please approach the podium. We have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad I said that as my public comment because it wasn't brought up in during the presentation when you compare it back to the paperwork, right? And so just to make the public aware, these presentations don't always say everything that the documents do. So it's good to read the document too, to further educate yourself, not just the brief presentation, because I'm sure all of you are reading the documents, right? And so we just want to reinforce the right way to get to the information. One compliment real quick, and I'm sorry this is off topic, but the way you guys present the information to the public and you have it separated per item, it makes it real easy for the public to find where the papers are and then engage with that paperwork. So that was my compliment that I forgot to say. But going back to the $78,000 with this expenditure, what metrics do we use to judge or to assess the nature of them doing their whatever it's called, their outreach that you guys are claiming, right? So the verbatim text reads, to ensure transparency and comply with Community Power's non-energy procurement policy, the table shown below lists the contract amendments with not to exceed values between 50 to 150,000 that were executed under the CEO's authority for the month of April. So as far as I understand it, this is just for 1 month we're paying them $78,000, which I could be wrong, right? But that's not what I think it says. And if you guys don't have a way to judge the San Diego 350 is just one organization. There's also Groundwork San Diego, Good for Other Foundation funding agreement, 50,000 and 85,000 to Groundwork San Diego. Planet Bids, 59,000, San Diego Football Club, 115,000. And I'm just a little confused on the San Diego Football Club one, because it's like, what? It doesn't even say that they're doing a program outreach, you're just giving them $115,000. You know? But this is a contract execution, so this isn't like our expenses or the things that customers are actually paying for. These are the things that you wanna give to your friends and fund their operations, right? Like fraud, like waste, fraud and abuse, right? But the more that the people look into these things, I hope they have more questions like I do. Because like I said, the political action arm of this group right here is promoting division. I mean, I'm not out here to promote division. I want the community to come together. And if we're gonna give people $78,000 to do that, I expect you to reconsider.
Thank you, sir. This is receive and file treasurer's report for 8-month period ending February 28, 2026. We'll now go to item 3, presentation of draft fiscal year 2026-2027 operating budget, fiscal year 2026-2027 capital budget, and fiscal year 27 to 2031 capital investment plan, and quarterly risk oversight committee report. Our CEO, Karen Burns, will introduce the item and turn it over to Jack Clark, Chief Operating Officer, Gordon Samuel, Chief Commercial Officer, Lucas Otu, Senior Director of Data Analytics and Customer Operations, Tim McLipmott, Senior Director of Finance and Risk, Colin Santulli, Senior Director of Programs, Jen LeBron, Senior Director of Public Affairs, and Patrick Wells, Associate Director of Legislative Affairs, to finalize presentation. That's why we're all here. Take it away, Madam CEO.
Good afternoon, council members, board members. Thank you, Chair. The San Diego Community Power fiscal year 2027 proposed budget is designed to protect affordability while continuing to deliver reliable, cleaner energy to the communities we serve. At a time when costs and uncertainty are top of mind, this budget focuses on what matters most, keeping bills as manageable as possible, ensuring reliable service delivery, and making thoughtful, disciplined decisions when we invest our time and resources. This is about more than simply balancing a budget. This is about how we translate our mission into tangible outcomes that customers can see and feel, whether that is through competitive rates or stronger programs. Today, we'll walk you through how we are protecting customers from volatility, where we are making targeted investments, and how we are holding ourselves accountable for those results. Every decision we make, purchasing power to expanding programs, is grounded in the needs of our customers and communities. In these uncertain times, we aim to approach this budget the same way our customers approach theirs, staying focused on the essentials, long-term stability, and the best value for every dollar we spend. The bottom line is that this budget reflects a disciplined approach to doing exactly what we were created to do: put our customers first, make smart financial decisions, and deliver reliable, competitively priced, cleaner energy to the communities we serve. I will now turn it over to Tim McLipmott, our Senior Director of Finance. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. And good afternoon, Chair Bani, Vice Chair Suzuki, Director Nzinsa. For the record, my name is Timothy McLipmott, Senior Director of Finance and Risk at Community Power. Before I get into it, I just want to take a quick moment just to really quickly thank staff. So whenever we do these budgets, it is a fair amount of work. Members of staff who are here today are the people who did most of the heavy lifting of this budget. So just by way of a quick background, Community Power has grown a lot since our inception in October 2019. You can kind of see in this transit chart, we've had a couple of years of negative net income that you can see. And our kind of first 4 years were marked by enrollment, kind of the startup phase for the agency. And it wasn't really until the last 4 years that the agency has seen stability in the budget and has grown to kind of almost level in terms of a flight pattern of just an expense budget. Our budget for the last 4 years has hovered around $1 billion. So we've been pretty stable, kind of in the last 4 years and kind of hit a cruising altitude, at about $1 billion. So as we hit stability, our focus kind of shifts a little bit more to cost control, to affordability, and making sure that we can deliver, good rates for our customers, as we try to manage our budget. Another thing to point you to is you'll also notice in this year's budget that our expense budget has decreased slightly, to about $900 million, which I'm going to get to in a lot more detail, in slides to come. In terms of what the board can expect as part of this budget presentation, so after this kind of roadshow today and the details that we're going to go through, the board will get another opportunity to see kind of a simple presentation next week at the board meeting. We also do anticipate going to our CAC in June, followed by one other opportunity for the FRMC to see the budget in June, and then hopefully a June board adoption to ratify the budget. Whenever Community Power prepares these budgets, there are some internal priorities that we take and hold seriously. A couple that I'd like to highlight are fiscal responsibility. It's really important for the agency to protect ratepayer funds for our customers and to make sure that we're good stewards of customer funds so we can preserve affordability, while continuing to maintain community power for the long term. So kind of just two big things in terms of fiscal responsibility, but also trying to prioritize people and affordability whenever possible. Kind of two big themes with the budget. In terms of what we're proposing with this year's budget, I kind of mentioned it earlier, there's kind of two big themes that you'll see in this budget that we're proposing. The budget is proposing a revenue reduction of about $250 million, down to about $918 million in terms of net revenue. That net revenue reduction is only partially offset by an expense budget reduction, where again, we're proposing to decrease that budget down to $929 million for the upcoming fiscal year. I'm gonna get into a lot more detail on what's occurring kind of in the revenue and expense. But it's a stable budget in terms of the last 4 years, but that expense and revenue has gone down. Kind of with the revenue expense going down, we do expect kind of a smaller net margin this fiscal year. So one of the key tenets of this budget is cost control. A couple of the areas that you'll see in this budget is number one, we're proposing to contribute slightly less to our capital investment plan. So instead of a $22 million contribution to the capital investment plan, again, because we're seeing a little bit of volatility in the revenue and expenses kind of going down, squeezing our margins, we're proposing to contribute $8 million to the CIP as opposed to the normal $22 million that we've contributed in the last couple of years. You'll also notice just a slight increase to our non-energy budget. You've heard me say this before, but our non-energy budget is one of the main things that are under control of staff. And we took a really close look to make sure that we're really managing costs, really taking a close look at every single proposal that was submitted in this year's budget. And really trying to control that non-energy costs so that we can again promote affordability for our customers. So all in all, in this year's budget, kind of with the revenue and expenses, it leads to only a small kind of marginal contribution to the net margin or to the reserves, of about $3 million. So my colleague Jeff presented earlier on reserves as part of the Treasurer's report. And if we were to look at the reserve build in this proposed budget as it relates to what Jeff presented for this fiscal year's operating expenses, this year's budget would increase our reserves up to about $255 million. That puts us right between that 225 days cash on hand reserve target and that maximum 270 days reserve target that the board set in December. But I will note that, again, that this budget has kind of a smaller denominator in terms of our expenses. Our expenses, if you look at the second slide, have kind of fluctuated anywhere between $900 million all the way up to $1.2 billion in the last 4 years. And so as those operating expenses fluctuate, it changes the denominator for how you calculate reserves. And because we have a lower expense number this fiscal year, if you were just to use one fiscal year's number, we would grow our reserves up to 278 days cash on hand, which is slightly above the target. But again, kind of the point there is It depends on which operating expense budget number you look at. Because in the past few years, it is lower than that maximum reserve target. Kind of the other key point to make here is we are proposing to try to build up to that maximum reserve target purposely. Because we're seeing a lot more volatility, potentially here in the market for energy. And want to brace for impact for the agency, in terms of some of that volatility that we expect to occur in 2027. The board will remember in December 2025, Jeb Spangler and I presented on risk and reserves for the agency. In that presentation, we talked through kind of why we proposed to build up to that 270 days cash on hand target. And then we talked through this chart, we talked about the big reserve kind of risk factors and why we want to try to build reserves up to that 270 days cash on hand level. One of the main points, and it was a very painful and long presentation that you guys will remember, but one of the main points of the presentation is that by far and away, PCIA and generation rates, especially with San Diego Gas and Electric, are by far the biggest risk to the agency, at least in terms of finances. And that was estimated at about $420 million back in December of 2025. I promise I'm not going to go through the full presentation from December, but the key concept in that presentation in December is that SCG&E already contracted for a lot of energy resources before community power joined. And SCG&E needs to be made whole for all energy that they contracted for, essentially by passing on those costs to the customers. And so the kind of just fundamentally, just as a quick reminder, the way it works is if SCG&E paid $60 for energy and they're taking that same energy that they already paid for, and are only getting $20 in the open market, they're made whole kind of for that difference, for the difference in the energy costs. And then again, I'm not going to go into the details, but there's kind of two main factors that occur whenever that PCAA mechanic occurs. So kind of the things that happen then are SCG&E's chewed up for the extra energy that they procured in this current calendar year, then counted in next year's rates. Next year's rates then for SCG&E use that kind of lower cost base for anticipating in the energy market. So lower energy costs, SCG&E gets made whole with the bigger chew up, but then next year SCG&E is going to get made whole with the energy that they're selling in the market at kind of a lower cost. And then the third phenomenon that occurs with PCIA is because those energy costs are projected to be much lower next calendar year, SCG&E can charge a slightly lower rate for energy. So just by way of more background, kind of this phenomenon of PCIA, what it means for community power is any given year, there's kind of three main cycles that can occur in community power. When prices go from high to low, which is what's occurring right now, that's kind of what we call a PCIA snapback, where SCG&E gets chewed up and made whole for the extra energy that they bought, and then they can only sell it at a lower price. And we call that phenomenon kind of the PCIA snapback, again, when prices go from high to low. Kind of phenomenon number two that could occur in a typical SCCP cycle is when prices go from low to high, SCG&E, for the energy that they procured, can sell that same energy at a higher price. And so they're making money from the higher price. And when that occurs, the community power can make more money because that PCIA that our customers are charged gets squeezed, and we can squeeze a little bit more from our revenues when that occurs. And then kind of a third cycle that's typical for community power is when prices are stable. It's more of a stable kind of PCIA in rates with SCG&E. So kind of three different cyclical factors that can occur for community power. In this year's budget, we are projecting that PCIA snapback to occur. So we are in an environment where prices were high. The CPUC projected prices that were high last calendar year in October 2025. But if you were to talk to Gordon Samuel, our Chief Commercial Officer, he can tell you that in today's market for this year and for next year, those same prices for energy, renewable resources and resource advocacy, those prices are all projected to be much lower than what was originally forecasted. And so we think we're headed into a PCA snapback calendar year for next year in 2027. Kind of mentioned some of the, got ahead of myself. So all that's to say That's kind of the reason why we are proposing to try to build our reserves up to that maximum target level, closer to that 270 days cash on hand reserve target. Because again, we are trying to brace for impact because we think this is a PCA snapback year occurring calendar year 2027. I do want to get into a little bit more details on what we're actually seeing in the market. So whenever the PCA is calculated, it's based on three key energy metrics. Number one are obviously energy costs. Number two are renewable costs. And then number three are resource adequacy costs. So you can kind of see there via that chart, those renewable costs are projected by the CPUC in October of 2025. They have gone down really substantially from last year to what we're seeing in the first 5 months of this calendar year. Not too dissimilarly, energy has also gone down from what they projected in October, what we're seeing now in the open marketplace. And then resource adequacy, kind of the third big factor for PCIA, that's remained stable, but those two of the three main factors that affect PCIA have gone down. And so that's why we're projecting that PCIA snapback to occur in calendar year 2027. So just to show you just by way of number, the board has seen this chart before, but the blue is what community power collects in terms of revenue from customers. But then when we calculate our discount to SDG&E, we also factor in that PCIA in addition to what we collect for revenue in the blue. So as that PCIA has increased, that means, and you kind of see that visually in the chart, that 4% discount that we experienced in this calendar year, it gets squeezed by the additional PCIA that our customers paid, that SDG&E kind of passed on, because again, those prices are shrinking. And so that's kind of shrinking what community power can collect in terms of revenue. And I guess just to close that revenue side out, that's kind of why you see that big dip for community power for revenue in this fiscal year, because again, our margins are being squeezed, that PCA has increased. And as we can't collect as much in revenue as we did, obviously, in this calendar year. On the cost side of the equation, it's only partially offset on the cost side. I think a normal layman's person would think, if you see energy prices coming down, that means community power can pay less for energy. And that's true. We are paying less for energy. And a lot of that has to do with the energy that we still need to procure in the open marketplace. So kind of two phenomenons are occurring. Number one is we have a contract with SDG&E. It's called the Voluntary Allocation Market Offer. We're buying renewable resources from SDG&E, and we're paying for those renewable resources at whatever the market price is. So as that market price for renewables has come down, it means on the cost side, we're paying less for those, what we call BAMO renewable resources. And that's driven down our costs slightly. Similarly, on the energy front, for next calendar year, we haven't procured all the energy yet for next calendar year. So on the cost side, we can also take advantage of those costs coming down and pay those energy positions that we need to close next year at a lower price. So these are the two kind of main drivers that are driving down energy. But kind of the main point is energy costs are coming down, and that's only slightly offsetting that revenue PCA snapback that we're seeing occur. So back in December, the board remembers kind of the stress tests that we kind of do to measure, what might happen in the next year. So we did a stress test similarly where we tested what does a 5% market price look like, and what does a 95% market price look like for kind of the scenarios that could occur in the multi-year scenarios for next calendar year. So when we tested those two scenarios in terms of what a 5% market price looks like and a 95% market price looks like, that's why you see kind of the red and the gray in those two lines in that reserve chart. It's a long way of me saying that the kind of multiverse of possibility that can occur in next calendar year, it's really wide. Our reserves can go as low as 156 days cash on hand. If, again, we did nothing and kept everything the same, we could dip as low as 156 days cash on hand. But our reserves can also increase kind of conversely to that, all the way up to 455 days cash on hand. So if prices decrease to kind of a 5% probability level, it means that we can get all the way down to that really low level before that is below kind of our minimum reserve target. But there's a reality that exists. We can also build really high, kind of above 455 days cash on hand. So all that's to say, we're in May of 2025. It's way too early to tell what might happen for energy. So what we expect to occur is in October of 2025, the CPUC is going to publish their market price benchmarks, which will tell us much more on what the CPUC projects for this calendar year for those energy costs and what they project for next calendar year. So once we get into October 2025, we'll return back to the board with kind of an update on what's happening in the energy market. But this is like the way too early prediction for next calendar year. But at least for the first 5 months of this fiscal year or this calendar year, we are projecting kind of that PCA snapback to occur. The other thing to mention is my colleague Jeb in March of 2025 brought forth the rate stabilization reserve policy to the board. We do propose potentially funding that rate stabilization reserve in the October-November timeframe, because we just need to know more data for what reserves might look like. And again, in October 2025, that's when we expect, or sorry, 2026, that's when we expect to get a lot more visibility, and that's when we bring forth a recommendation for what we might do for the rate stabilization reserve. So that's kind of the big picture of what's happening on the revenue and the energy front. And that's kind of the big picture of what we're seeing for kind of the volatility that we expect for next calendar year. With that said, I'm going to turn over to my colleague, Chris Still, who's going to go over the non-energy portion of the budget. Thanks.
Yeah, board members. My name is Christopher Doe, Senior Finance Analyst here at San Diego Community Power.
Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I have the pleasure of presenting the non-energy portion of the budget, and non-energy portion of the budget is the discretionary portion of the budget, where staff has somewhat of control. We are at mercy of energy markets for cost of energy and our revenues. But for the non-energy pieces, staff here, we show that we want to show that we have disciplined spending, keeping affordability at top of mind. So we start with professional services, remains relatively flat. And then we go to the personnel here in this chart, and we know that's our biggest increase in the non-energy spend. We'll get into the details of that shortly. As in for outreach, that remains relatively flat. General administrative has also increased. That's to scale with the increase of personnel costs. And capital transfer, to reiterate, this is an $8 million transfer. This is not a reduction in CIP, but this is still an $8 appropriation additionally to the committed dollars that were previously approved. Going to the personnel pieces in this proposed budget, we have 5 additional FTEs. 1 is cost recoverable. So what that leads to is a $4.5 million increase in hiring annualized. We like to emphasize that $1.2 million will be our builder recovery. With that being said, 108 FTE is what we're proposing. 13 FTE will be cost recoverable. So we're looking at $24.1 million in that spend. Now, how do we stack up to other CCAs? We compare ourselves to our sibling agencies, NCE, AVA. They have large programmatic offerings like us. We also have a robust programmatic offering in our CIP, especially in the amount of dollars. We also compare ourselves to CPA, Clean Power Alliance, or CCA in Los Angeles. They have a larger load size than we do, similar load size. And what we're trying to illustrate here is that we are right in line with our other CCAs that are similar size. We are unique that we do offer a large load size and a large robust program offering. So in this slide, we like to illustrate in a different way that our core operations outside of programs, we're still in line compared to our peer CCAs. And then also looking at our program staff, we're also in line with large program offering. We'll get more into this overhead support from the associate director at CIP well. But in the meantime, I have one more slide. And this is the overall budget comparisons. As we mentioned before, we can look at the column where customer accounts stand. We are the second largest CCA by that number, and therefore we are the second largest in the cost of energy. If you look at non-energy costs, we are, I believe, third in this chart. So again, we are keeping dollars top of mind here, keeping our customers top of mind, showing that we are disciplined in spending compared to our peers. And that concludes my presentation. I'm gonna hand this off to our colleague Will. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Will Wiseman, Associate Director of Finance for the Capital Investment Plan. The FY 27 capital investment plan and capital budget continues to be driven in large part by externally funded programs. The San Diego Regional Energy Network, in particular, contributes to be the driving force behind the capital budget, with 63 million dedicated in FY 27. This was previously approved by the board in 2025 as part of 125 million in overall funding from the CPUC. In addition to the REN, the FY 27 capital budget continues its investment in solar battery savings program, allocating 3.5 million to support incentives for additional program participants. The budget also continues investment in customer pilot programs with a combined 2.5 million to focus on additional customer segments while continuing to focus on peak load shifting. To round out the highlights, the budget also allocates 1.5 million to support the distributed energy resources management system software platform to help customers reduce usage during high cost peak hours. As part of the development process, Community Power also prepares and adopts its 5-year capital investment plan. The first year of the capital investment plan reflects the FY 27 proposed capital budget. As this is a capital planning tool, note that no appropriation is being requested with this action for the subsequent fiscal years. For FY 27, the budget incorporates 63.4 million in externally funded programs, along with 8 million, as Tim's previously mentioned, in internal funding for a total capital budget of 71.4 million. External funding sources include CPUC funds and grants, which are not supported by the operating budget. The CIP also includes 21.3 million in carry forward funds appropriated in prior fiscal years for a total capital investment plan over the outlook period of 310.7 million. And I just want to note here that carry forward budget is a point in time snapshot, so we will continue to update that as we close the fiscal year. So to tie that back to what this means in this appropriation request, 8 million for internally funded programs is included in the operating budget. This is funded through a mix of net operating revenues for general benefit programs and non-operating investment income for programs with restricted program eligibility, such as those for communities of concern. As has been mentioned, this reflects a notable reduction in internal funding compared to the FY 22 allocation or FY 26 allocation of 22 million, which reflects a deliberate focus on cost reduction. Since its inception in FY 24, the capital budget has experienced steady year-over-year growth, driven, as is a common theme, in large part by cost recoverable external sources. This is reflective of how the organization has continued to mature to support the needs of key initiatives and in particularly leveraging cost recoverable resources. As we talk about growth in the CIP and its support through SDCP, it's worth looking at how this translates through the organization. To revisit comparative staffing levels, based on a 45% program overhead rate, SDCP remains similar overhead support to other CCAs despite significant program offerings. Overhead support includes functions like procurement, communications, legal, and accounting support. 13 positions included in the FY 27 proposed budget are directly cost recoverable through external funding sources. Overhead support is recoverable to the organization through a billed overhead allocation rate. SDCP continues to operate the CIP in a lean manner relative to program growth. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Gordon Samuel, our Chief Commercial Officer, who will be going over the budget for Power Services.
There's an initiation.
Karaoke. Maybe later. Good afternoon, Director Gordon Samuel, Chief Commercial Officer. As you know, purchasing power has the largest impact on our budget. We strive to provide cleaner, reliable, competitively priced electricity, and we do it focusing on the following priorities. We manage risk through a diversified procurement strategy. We maintain compliance at the lowest feasible cost, and we're using improved forecasting and analytics. In January of this year, the board approved an agreement with a new scheduling coordinator, which resulted in savings of about $130,000. We also have some investments in some agreements that were approved by the board in Q4 of last year for storage optimization and load forecasting. Storage optimization is important as we have battery storage coming onto the grid. Contracts that we have executed in the past are now starting to become commercial operational. We need this in order to forecast when to charge and when to discharge the battery in order to extract the most value from these resources. We also are bringing some long-term load forecasting tools in-house. And in order to do that, we have in the budget 1 FTE for the next fiscal year. I'll turn it over to Karen.
Thank you, Gordon. Excellent. Thank you. Back one. So now we're turning over to operations. So our operations ensure that community power functions effectively and efficiently across all departments. Operations drives the implementation of the agency's strategic objectives through internal coordination, collaboration, and operational excellence. The team oversees internal governance, agency-wide administrative systems, and policy development. Operations is also responsible for engagement with our customers and stakeholders at all levels, including the Community Advisory Committee, which means we hear from our customers on a regular basis and work to tailor our collective efforts to meet their needs. This includes our work to ensure transparency and accountability. We largely are holding steady on our budgets, but are proposing some key investments to enhance customer education, launch programs that have been in development for years, and support new pilots that can make the clean energy transition more accessible for all. Each of the department heads for the operations team will take a moment to share the notable changes in their budgets for this year. Today, we will start with Lucas Uto, Senior Director of IT, Data Analytics, and Customer Operations. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Good afternoon, directors. For the record, my name is Lucas Uto. I'm the Senior Director of IT, Data Analytics, and Customer Operations. So the IT, Data Analytics, and Customer Ops department serves two distinct functions that have been broken up in the budget book as two separate cost centers, one for IT and data analytics, and the other customer ops. Both functions work very closely together to provide reliable data-driven tools to our internal staff and most importantly to our customers. The budget highlights for our department definitely include an investment in AI. This is the next frontier, and data analytics, managed services to create efficiencies and potential savings for our customers. We're also continuing improvements to billing accuracy, which is a critical metric. We want customers to get bills on time, as well as customer communications to further transparency and clarity in terms of customers understanding their bills and so on and so forth. And also an enhanced IT infrastructure and cybersecurity fortification to protect critical data for our customers and the agency as a whole. These improvements mean that the IT and data analytics proposed costs in the budget are increasing by approximately $519,000 to reflect targeted and intentional investments in capabilities to serve our customers and improve long-term performance within the agency. Notably, the customer operation proposed costs are decreasing by approximately $1.3 million, driven largely by efficiency gains internally and also external reduced costs, especially as it relates to the Calpine agreement that the board approved in March. These changes reflect a shift towards a more efficient, data-driven model that improves both internal operations and certainly customer outcomes. I would now like to pass the baton over to my colleague, Patrick Welsh, the Associate Director of Legislative Affairs, to introduce the Regulatory and Legislative Affairs Department. What an overview.
Thank you, Lucas. Patrick Welch, Associate Director of Legislative Affairs. Good afternoon, committee chair and members. Laura Fernandez, our Senior Director of Regulatory and Legislative Affairs, is out on maternity leave, so you're hearing from me tonight. Thank you for accommodating me virtually. I look forward to seeing you at the board meeting next week. As you know, the Regulatory and Legislative Affairs Department monitors and engages and influences in two primary areas. That's the California Public Utilities Commission and the state legislature. And state law and regulations and decisions that come from the California Public Utilities Commission and the legislature directly influence the costs and operations of San Diego Community Power, both as a load-serving entity and as a local government entity, a joint powers agency. Our budget is two changes this year in our budget, a reduction in costs due to not renewing a contract with a federal lobbyist. We have been getting service from a national trade association that I think works really well for us. So that's a cost-effective option for us. And a slight increase for our regulatory council due to inflation and increase in workload due to the number of proceedings at the CPUC. So our goal really as a department is straightforward. We are fighting to prevent cost shifts. We are fighting for our customers. We are fighting for clean energy and reliability. We are engaging with lawmakers. We are engaging with regulators, guided by our board-approved regulatory and legislative platform to make sure we can deliver on our mission and vision, and so that all the rest of the organization, power services, customer operations, programs, can be successful in delivering value to the San Diego region. I will continue to be remote, so if there are any questions, please let me know. And I would like to now turn it over to Colin, our Senior Director of Programs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And members of the board, thank you, Patrick. It's a lovely Howard Century, Senior Director of our Customer Programs team. The Programs Department designs and implements initiatives to reduce customer bills, to increase energy resilience, and to expand access to clean energy technologies for our customers. The program section of the budget and the CIP is the largest next to power and acts as a clear commitment of our pledge to reinvest into our communities that we serve and create a more equitable future for all. Our programs are guided by our community power plan, the climate action plans of our member agencies, as well as state and federal policy. We also work closely with community-based organizations, with industry, and with internal departments to ensure we are designing programs that are equitable, cost-effective, and can scale. The department led the launch, and we now oversee the San Diego Regional Energy Network. This is a transformative, multi-year energy efficiency and demand-side management effort in San Diego County, and has done so in partnership with the County of San Diego. In addition to this significant effort to lead the REN, the other notable investments in the budget this year include the continuation of our solar battery savings program, as well as the development of a new suite of pilot programs. These new pilot programs will target customer segments and technologies that weren't initially targeted in that first tranche of pilot programs that was allocated by the board in fiscal year 23-24. Specifically, they will focus or continue to focus on peak load shifting while targeting the commercial, non-residential, multifamily, and renter customer segments. We're doing all this with our eyes set on equity and trying to invest 50% of the funds that we put out in the community into low-income customers and into priority communities. Every one of our programs creates a system-wide savings that benefits all ratepayers with a goal towards increasing affordability for our service. These programs, tools, and incentives align customer behavior with the grid needs that help make our clean energy system smarter, more affordable, and more resilient. And with that, I will pass it to my colleague, Senior Director of Public Affairs, Joe Brown.
Good afternoon, committee members. For the record, my name is Jen LeBron, the Senior Director of Public Affairs for Community Power. The Public Affairs Department connects community power with the people and communities it serves and supports all the departments and their initiatives that you've heard about today. Together, the Strategic Communications, Marketing, and Community Engagement divisions of the Public Affairs team foster community power's connections with key audience, enhance brand identity, and ensure transparency through outreach, media engagement, and public education. We also support the Community Advisory Committee and work with a broader team to ensure local priorities are reflected in agency-wide decision-making. Our job is to make sure customers and internal staff have the tools they need to understand Community Power's mission and the rates and programs they can use to become sustainable and save money. All these efforts and investments previously fell under the marketing and outreach category. However, a notable change this year is that we have renamed this category to Strategic Communications and Outreach to better reflect the work that we do day to day and combine some of the smaller categories that we've had in previous budgets. While the word marketing certainly plays a role at Community Power, the majority of the work that we do to get the word out about our initiatives and programs is extremely targeted, which is where communications really comes into play. We wanted our budget to reflect that important work and note the importance of tailoring our approach to the diverse audiences across our 7-member agencies. Our budget highlights reflect the expansion of programs and the need for the professional staff to ensure that the people who need our help can understand the options available to them. Therefore, our biggest adjustments year over year include a new cost recoverable SPREN outreach position who can help with the boots on the ground work that we will need in communities of concern and other historically hard to reach communities. We also are asking for a community engagement manager who can better support our community advisory committee and provide strategic outreach coordination to encourage programmatic participation. Both of these positions are critical to Community Power being able to deliver on the promises we made to reinvest in the communities we serve and developing trusted sources to help our customers seize the opportunities in front of them. All of our efforts on communications, marketing, education, and outreach are done with the goal of providing our customers with accurate, helpful information from a brand that they have seen partner with community stalwarts that include local nonprofits, community groups, and our local sports teams that they already have a connection with. And with that, I'd like to turn it back to our CEO, Karen Burns.
Thank you, Jen. And thank you to all of our team members who have walked through the details of the proposed budget. I want to thank you for your tremendous efforts from you and your teams that you've put forth over the past few months. I know firsthand that this was a very thoughtful, intentional process that put customers and the long-term sustainability of our organization at the front of the conversation. What you just heard reflects the expertise of our staff and the values that drive our decision-making. This proposed operating budget, and capital investment plan are more than just numbers. These are our promises to our ratepayers to provide them with outstanding service. Our fiscal year 2027 proposed budget is a blueprint for building the clean, equitable, and resilient future that our communities deserve. It balances long-term fiscal discipline with near-term action, and it continues our commitment to affordability, equitable programs, and organizational excellence. From strategic energy procurement to program design and community outreach, every dollar in this budget is intentionally directed to maximize value for our customers and ensure that Community Power is built to last. You all are the first to hear our proposed budget, and we look forward to your feedback. We plan to incorporate it before we present it once more to the full board next week. As we move forward, we remain committed to listening to you and our customers, learning from our partners, and delivering on the promise of Community Power, not just as a utility, but as a force for good in our region. Thank you, and we look forward to answering any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Madam CEO. Thank you, Karen. Comments, members, I know that you're reserving, there's a lot to digest. Thank you so much, team, for presenting us this very thoughtful and diligent presentation. I know there will be questions here. Maybe we're reserving it for Thursday. I need my book because, I like to make my notes. I have, some comments or questions, but I'm just so proud to be sitting here, chair of this committee, to see this, budget that is in the blue. And, so diligent and so thoughtful and conservatively, dissected. That's me. I'm reading it, but I'm a paper person, so I like to see my notes. I like to see my, just like what my CEO said, I like to see my color, colored pencils and so to get my notes straightened from the thoughts that I'm having, listening and looking at the presentation that we have. I will reserve my questions to you for our meeting on Thursday. I will review it some more when I get my book. And Director, Vice Chair, and Director, do you have any comments? This is an item for receive and file. It's a preliminary draft that we are seeing right now for our operating budget, our capital budget, and our capital investment plan for fiscal year 26-27.
I have a couple of questions. I guess first I'd like to call, is it Lucas? Lucas, I think.
Utu, yes.
Yeah.
Data analytics.
Thank you, Lucas, and thank you everyone for your clear presentations. I like the graphics. I appreciate that. I find that is something that helps keep attention, so I appreciate it. Lucas, I saw that AI managed services, so that's going to be an increase of, or at least a requested increase of 200,000 for that. Can you tell me about that? What kind of services are we talking about?
So thank you for the question, Vice Chair Suzuki. So for the artificial intelligence ask in the budget, it is essentially all encompassing. We're looking, and again, I mean, we've created through our CEO and the executive team an AI policy, and essentially what that allows us to do is have the guardrails required internally. And then from there, we want to bring a dedicated partner to come in and take stock of all of our internal operations and see ways to optimize how we're doing things internally to better serve our customers by leveraging and unleashing the power of AI responsibly. So that is what that ask is about. But I'm more than glad to take any additional questions from your end.
Right, so where can I get a copy of the policy?
We would be more than glad to send it your way following this meeting.
That'd be great. I would like to see it. And then also, I know that AI is going to be, so is AI then going to be looking and evaluating how the services are being used? And then it's going to be, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I understand. It sounds like you're having somebody evaluate it, and then, oh, is it a person, a human in the loop, and they're going to evaluate it, and then after they evaluate it, then they're going to see how they can responsibly integrate AI into the system?
Precisely. So we're not saying, hey, let the machines take the reins of our infrastructure. No, not at all. What we're saying is we would like to have a partnership with a vendor, so people who essentially have the AI capabilities. But before we leverage those AI capabilities internally, we want to have a conversation and an assessment of how and where best to leverage AI. Right? I think one of the things that is critically important for us as an agency is we understand that this is definitely the next frontier, but it's not to be rushed into, right? We are custodians of a lot of PII information, customer information, and we take that obligation very seriously. And so I just want to take this moment to assure you that we are doing our due diligence, and that policy is structured in such a way that allows for our agency to create the guardrails before we say, hey, come in and let's optimize some of the processes. We want to make sure that we're doing the assessment upfront, to see areas in which we can responsibly leverage AI, full knowing and understanding our obligation to keep our customers' data secure, as well as our internal operations.
Okay, that is fantastic. I think that's great that you guys are taking those steps. So when you get your assessment back, are we going to be able to, is the board gonna be reviewing the assessment as well, or how? I would love a report on it because I just like to know. I want to keep track of it because I personally think that AI still has a little way to go as far as, when people call and they want to know things. Like I've been calling places and you can totally tell you're talking to an AI person, or even if you go to Carl's Jr. and you try to order a burger and then the AI is like, how do you want your burger? And then you're like, no, I don't want that. And it's like, okay, thank you. And then you get it, it's still not the burger. So I don't want an AI, I mean, for especially our older generation, and I'm thinking down, I know I'm jumping ahead. But like what I don't want is for especially ratepayers calling up and they keep getting an AI if they're older, And so we need to make sure that accessibility is always there. And so I know this is a budget discussion, but this is something that for me, it's relevant right now. And I know that I spoke with CEO Burns, and I appreciate that about Gov AI and getting in front of this because it's so very important for us to keep in mind that we still have all these people we need to make sure understand and can, get in touch with us. And I don't know. And I feel like our organization is definitely not the kind of organization that would not want to hear from our community. So thank you. I appreciate that. I would love the report and I'd like to be, just if I could also get the policy, I'd love that.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Thank you.
Director Johnson.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have one more
Oh,
question.
okay. Sorry, Vice.
Sorry, not for Lucas. Thank you, Lucas. Thank you. The next one is it's a legislative question.
Patrick.
Yeah, Patrick. Thank you, Patrick.
Yep, I'm here.
Hi. So I see that we did not renew the contract with the federal contract lobbyist.
Yes. Yeah.
What was that reason?
Yeah. We had them on a retainer, I think for about 3 years. We had also recently joined the Community Choice Energy Alliance, which is a growing national trade association of CCAs. I'll be presenting a little bit about this actually at the board meeting next week and the work we're doing with them. We've found that to be a very cost-effective trade association. The cost of that is about $30,000 a year versus the cost of an individual lobbyist. The retainer we had that ends in June was $90,000 a year. We are a retail agency. Our primary regulators are here in California. While Congress, like last year, sometimes makes big changes related to energy, it does not necessarily, they do not make decisions on a pace and scale, I think, that warrants belonging to a trade association that is fairly adept at tracking and engaging on things, and an individual lobbyist as well. So we thought it was a good area to find efficiencies and still get a lot of coverage at the federal level. And I'll conclude by saying that speaking in groups or as part of a coalition at the federal level is even more important than it is at the state level. As an individual agency working with the Public Utilities Commission or the state legislature, we can have an individual and sometimes outsized impact in policy discussions. That is not the case in congressional discussions. You need to be part of a broader group. And so we're leaning more towards that model at the federal advocacy posture.
Awesome. Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate that. It sounds like a really good decision. So I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Nzunza.
No, but I'm hungry now.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I think that's also for our legislative committee. I think that's also
Thank you.
their diligence, because I think 2 months ago when Mr. Spangler recommended that we up our participation with our JPA Cal CCA, and that's also a good resource and vehicle for us to be advocating in that state and federal level. And our CEO now sits at the table. Thank you. Okay. So we are going to, this is a receive and file. Madam Secretary, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. Robert, please approach the podium. We have 3 minutes to address that.
Thank you for my time. You know, the words we use are important. And I hear a lot of sustainability, renewable, you know, the repetitiveness of playing the card. But I noticed on one of your slides that actually was comparing to natural gas. And it's kind of funny that you would hear this whole facade and then the slides actually referring to natural gas. So you got to call it out when you see it too. And it's nice that everyone's used buzzwords, but let's just be honest and move forward. Like I said, if you want to claim to be sustainable, what is sustainable about continuing to hire more people, in turn driving up rates to ratepayers? I mean, it's that simple, right? Like, let's do the math real quick. How many people did you say you were hiring? 5, 4, whatever, one difference. It's $5 million. Divide it up. You're paying those people $1 million a piece. I mean, the math is just so simple. I know you guys can see it too. It's not that I'm just saying something that no one notices. It's in the paperwork. But you know, through your sustainable, renewable natural gas, you know, I'm on a 50-51 plan. And so when I open the app, right, to look at my bill, I see SDG&E. As a matter of fact, when I see the power lines going through my neighborhood, I see SDG&E managing those. What do you guys offer? Oh, that's right. It's a climate credits. So you can't even prove where any of this energy comes from. It's just what you guys are saying it comes from, right? I mean, I'd love for any of you to show me the ions going through the lines and telling me it came from a solar panel. It's hilarious. But once again, you guys are going to hire more people to then increase rates on people. You're going to implement AI, even though you don't have any systems, right? You're using SDG&E system to have customers engage. So what exactly do you guys own? You guys don't own the power lines. You guys don't own the generation to the energy. You guys are just trying to fill seats through your renewable, sustainable initiatives. You know, but someone has to question things, especially which some of the members would question. And I appreciate your question about the AI, right? Like that's a general concept. I can support you in that. But I think there's just a couple more questions that, excuse me, Mr. Nzunza, I would hope you would ask, being a representative of me.
Thank you. This item is a receive and file preliminary draft fiscal year 2026-27 operating budget, fiscal year 2026-27 capital budget, and fiscal year 2027-31 capital investment plan and quarterly risk oversight committee report. Thank you, Madam Secretary. We move on to any committee member announcements. I see.
Talk about e-bikes, it's okay.
Oh,
Talk about e-bikes, it's okay.
oh, e-bike, oh, some more e-bikes. No, listen. I just wanted to say happy Memorial Day and to just recognize, you know, those who sacrificed for our country and our freedoms to be members of SDCP. So anyway, happy Memorial Day. I hope you folks all take a moment for those again who've made the sacrifice.
Thank you, Vice. Thank you. That brings us to the end of our agenda. Appreciate everyone's participation. Thank you, staff, for being here. Thank you for continuing to educate us to be able to help you, you know, and serve the community that we pledged we will serve. The next regular FRMC meeting will be held on Thursday, June 18, 2026 at 4 p.m. at Chula Vista Council Chambers. We are adjourned.
Oh,